whenever Damien Chazelle releases his next movie, I will not be able to help but smile. His films are just nothing short of magic. It doesn't matter what genre he touches, he always gets it right. Whether it's a psychological thriller, a musical romance, a science fiction biopic, or a 1920s period piece, he always gets it right. He's one of the most talented filmmakers I've ever seen any movies of, and I'm surprised he doesn't have any more movies in his library. And today, I am going to rank the 5 films that our good boy Damien has produced, and I'm gonna make an effort to rank them from worst to best based on my own humble opinion. Disclaimer, because I know a lot of angry Guy and Madeline and the Park Bench fans are gonna hate me for this, but this is just my opinion. It isn't a factual ranking or the definite list, it's just my own humble opinion. I'm going to voice my thoughts as if they were factual, but they're not. You guys can have your own opinion and you do not have to take mine as a definite. Because I'm just a stupid 14-year-old teenager that doesn't... You guys can have your own personal opinion, and you do not have to take mine as a definite. Because I'm just a stupid 14-year-old teenager that doesn't do anything with his life, and just stays inside all the day. No socializing! No one peel... Oh wait, the sunglasses! No opinion is invalid, and I encourage you guys to share your opinion in the comments down below. You guys can say your own opinion because that's the whole reason this ranking exists in the first place. It's my damn opinion. Now with that said, let's begin, shall we? Starting off this ranking, we have Damien Chazelle's directorial writing, producing, cinematography, and editing debut, Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench. It's on the very bottom of this list because it's simply a student film. But the reason I'm still including this is because it's still a film at the end of the day. But just because it's a film, it doesn't mean it's a good one. Because it's not. The film advances at a snail's pace despite its 84-minute runtime. I mean, just because a film's pace is slow doesn't mean it's not good. Oppenheimer is a great example of that. Unfortunately, Guy and Madeline's slow pace tanks my experience by quite a bit. Its plot feels oddly similar to La La Land because it features a guy that wants to succeed in jazz and the film was focused on that. Jazz. Like another YouTuber named... like another YouTuber named Jatney... Oh my god, this is so bad. Like another YouTuber named Jatney Park said,
I just don't find the story engaging or interesting enough to say it's anything more than a La La Land prototype.
I couldn't have described it any better than that. The script oddly feels like a rejected draft of La La Land. The cinematography is nothing special. If anything, it kind of sinks the movie, making everything feel much more bleak and boring. The performances are fine. They're not anything out of this world, but they're generally decently believable. However, like any other Damien Chazelle movie, the soundtrack is brilliant, vibrant, and colorful. Justin Horwitz is a genuinely incredible composer, and I wish whenever I start making my own movies, I can get to hire him to compose the score. This movie wasn't good, nor will I ever watch this ever again, but it was a pretty promising start to a director with unbelievable potential. Overall, bad movie, but good story. The very next movie is the newest addition to Damien Chazelle's filmography. Babylon. I have to say, this is the movie I was most excited to check out, because it seemed like the very first big budget Damien Chazelle film. As soon as the 1920s Paramount Pictures logo entered on screen, I knew I was in for a very good movie. Throughout it all, Babylon guides the viewer through a hectic and chaotic story, and somehow, it makes a lot of sense. But it also ends up creating some excessive fluff. The 3-hour runtime was one of my biggest turnoffs for this movie, and the more I viewed it, the more my dislike for this runtime grew. It's just too long, and it could have easily been told in a 2 or 2.5 hour runtime. There are just so many scenes that seem unnecessary, such as the scene with Nellie Leroy throwing up. Along with the ridiculous amount of cursing. I mean, 165 uses of the F-word? Seriously? The pacing is a serious problem in the film. At times it's too slow and at times it's too fast. It's very inconsistent, but, that's really it. Most of my issues I have with this movie are how graphic the content could get. But other than that, the movie's pretty good. Whenever it's intended to be funny, it's hysterical, and whenever it's intended to be sad, it's heartbreaking. The deaths of Jack Conrad and Nellie Leroy are devastating, and many becoming, as the script itself describes it, the proverbial moviegoer is just nothing short of amazing. Of course, the film's ending montage is the highlight of the movie, and this is in many ways the climax of the film, as everything that Damien Chazelle ever wanted to demonstrate is here. It's his love for cinema, and that ending shot with Manny in tears watching Singing in the Rain, oof. Bueno. Diego Calva's performance as Manny is incredible. Margot Robbie with Nelly gave it her everything, resulting in a character that you sometimes hate, and you just can't help but sympathize with. Overall, this movie is everything I needed in a Damien Chazelle film. It met my expectations and it felt great throughout. It did the very same thing as First Man, where it shows the crude reality of what our characters went through to achieve success, even at great personal sacrifice, which is a running theme in his films. Good movie overall. Finally, I wanted to talk about this movie so bad. Starting off my top 3 is the first film I ever saw of Damien. And honestly, First Man is one of the most stupidly underrated films I have ever seen. I mean, its critical scores on Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic fit my opinions of the film. I mean, got good reviews when it came out, but everyone just kind of forgot about it. I am not standing by that. First Man is a masterpiece of a film. Well, mostly. From the cinematography to the performances, the film screams incredible. Ryan Gosling as Neil Armstrong is the textbook definition of a hidden gem. His deadpan performance is one of the most realistic types of performances I've seen. But whenever he shows emotion, Gosling's talents pay dividends. Clarence's heartbreaking death, the first incredibly emotional moment of the film, is crushing. When I was shown how close Neil was to his daughter, I literally just said, something is about to go wrong. And the sudden transition of Neil cuddling his daughter's hair to a coffin hit me like a truck. I almost cried watching it the first time. Along with the death of his daughter, Neil loses Ed White and Elliot C., which are two of his closest friends. Elliot's death was just so sudden and it felt like it wasn't properly implemented to the story. But then I remembered that the script was from Niels' perspective, elevating the shock of the moment even more. Ed White's death was another moment in which my breath wasn't flowing. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I knew what was going to happen, but I had a slither of hope that maybe, just maybe, the crew of Apollo 1 would have made it out alive. But it didn't work out for them. I cried profusely after the moment. Claire Foy is incredible of this. If anything, if she was in more scenes, then maybe she would have taken the top spot for best performance in First Man. But for now, she's on par with Ryan Gosling. Somehow the scene where Janet confronts Neil about his chances of coming back just felt long overdue. I just knew that eventually their marriage would culminate in this argument. I also find it funny how furious Janet is at Neil and even curses at him, well, he just respectfully sits there and listens. Niels' conversation with his kids is pretty sad. I was already dejected with this much tragedy that was unfortunately real-life events. But the moment Ricky shakes his father's hand, I just broke into tears. The formality in that moment was just so heartbreaking. The climactic lunar landing sequence is absolutely stellar. The culmination of everything Neil was working for reaches its peak. As soon as he says shut down, I felt the glory of his achievement. When he let go of the bracelet that once belonged to his daughter, all the tears I had left in my eye glands streamed down my face. This was the very moment First Man was building up to, and it was worth it. Justin Hurwitz's music is once again a main highlight in this film. It's just so unique, gripping, and peaceful. Whenever the film presents a peaceful moment in space or down on Earth, it makes me feel like all my problems just float away, making me achieve full calmness. The slow pace is definitely important, as we have to get to know Neil and his traits. However, I do believe some scenes could have been cut from the film. Like the scene where Ed White discovers that the Soviets had beaten the Americans to another objective. I feel like that was a bit unnecessary, and if it wasn't in the movie, not much would have changed in the storyline. It does raise the stakes, but only by 1.5 inches. But that's really all my nitpicks I have with the film. It taught me to come to terms with the harsh reality that I have to let things go. This movie is the reason I've left so many empty friendships behind. Coming to terms with things that will only hurt you the more you remember them is an incredibly powerful message. It's stunning that a film so dependent on factual events and knowing how it's going to end can still keep me on the edge of my seat. Damien Chazelle is really the master of enthralling, tense, breathtaking climatic sequences. From the final concert of Whiplash to the ending montage of Babylon to the heartbreakingly beautiful ending of La La Land. And with this movie, they crafted some of the most gorgeous, tense, and soothing flight sequences in any space movie ever. It's one of the main reasons I love Interstellar and Apollo 13 so much, and why Gravity, despite its story, is visually gorgeous. First Man is nothing short of an amazing film that is undervalued by filmmakers and quickly glanced over by people who study Damien Chazelle's filmography. Like even Tyler Mowry, who is a screenwriting YouTuber that I respect and admire, ignored this film when he made his own Damien Chazelle video. But I guess First Man didn't generate enough buzz, because I genuinely hope the movie gets a cult following within the next few years, because it deserves it. And wow, 15 paragraphs on just First Man alone. It may sound like this is the best Damien Chazelle film, but there's a clear difference between my favorite Damien Chazelle movie and the best Damien Chazelle movie. But honestly, what can I even say? First Man deserves so much recognition and is an amazing space movie. Apollo 13 and First Man are both amazing space movies, but sadly, only one of them got the recognition and admiration it deserved. First Man is one of, if not the greatest space movie ever made. And yet, it's not even number 2.
You are a worthless, friendless, fat-lipped little piece of shit whose mom—
Yeah, I know, right? What the fuck? Whiplash not taking the top spot, my guess. Whiplash not taking the top spot might just get my house surrounded by an angry mob of drummers. But I do have to say, literally, what more could you want out of a movie? Whiplash is just one of the most incredible films ever made. I genuinely cannot think of anything wrong with this movie, outside of the fact that I sometimes just couldn't bear to watch it because it's just, not because it was bad, hell no, this movie is immaculate, but because of how genuinely frightened I was whenever Terrence Fletcher was on screen. Out of all the movies Damien Chazelle has written, he writes the shit out of this one the most. It tells a thrilling, dramatic, and intense story about the harsh reality of taking your emotions too far. The damage that Andrew Neiman suffers is just nothing short of shocking. I was just so taken aback because I thought this movie was just a decent motivational film, but it isn't. It's literally a motherfucking tutorial on how to destroy your life. The unflinching amount of despair and self-loathing Andrew goes through gets at the son of a bitch. The unflinching amount of despair and self-loathing that Andrew goes through gets the dramatic weight it deserves. Whiplash just doesn't stop there. The cinematography and the visuals are just some of the most gorgeous in cinematic history. Yeah, I said it. Whiplash has some of the best shots in cinematic history. Fight me, bitch. Andrew Neiman and Terrence Fletcher are the best protagonists and antagonists, respectively. The symbolism of this film is just the perfect amount of subtle. At the beginning, we see Andrew with a white t-shirt, which represents his purity and innocence in the jazz world. But the more Fletcher gains influence and control over him, the more darker clothes he wears. He even dresses up like him more and even curses more.
I'm in studio band because I'm the
Hey, why
best
don't
player.
you just back off, bro?
Off, Johnny Utah, turn my pages, bitch.
Hey!
The supporting cast is still great. Melissa Benoist made me feel sorry for Andrew as much as she was feeling that way for him. Their breakup scene is just nothing short of brutal. Andrew just completely changed from the timid yet sweethearted jazz drummer to a straight up abrasive and narcissistic asshole that doesn't give a shit for the sacrifices he makes. Paul Reiser did an amazing job, and I was kind of shocked to know that he was the same guy that played Dr. Owens in Stranger Things, which is a show I really, really love. Yes, I love the show, and I was finally able to reference it in a video! The climax of the film is just one of the best sequences in cinematic times. The fact that the film was shot in just 3 weeks makes so much sense because the pacing is fast, bold, and tense. Of course, I can't finish gushing about Whiplash without giving a huge shout out to the music, because the music is electrifying. It pumps me up every time I hear it. Much like how Babylon was hysterical when it was intended to be funny and heartbreaking when it was intended to be sad, Whiplash is terrifying when it needs to be tense and soothing when it needs to be calm. Justin Horwitz did an incredible job with this movie. Caravan is just one of the best jazz pieces I've ever listened to. Me and my drums professor constantly gush about Whiplash because it's just that good. And yet, it's not even number 1. Speaking of which... On my most recent viewing of this film, it finally hit me. La La Land might just be the greatest musical film ever made. Honestly, it's impossible to do such a majestic work of genius justice with words, but I'll give it a try. This movie feels like the one Damien Chazelle film that deserves every single amount of praise without any executive interference. There's a large celebrity cast and some comedic relief, yet neither of these detract from such a profound and sufficiently mature telling of doomed love. Nothing is sugar-coated or softened. The relationship of Sebastian and Mia could only go one way if these two were to pursue their dreams. And that was the inescapable grasp of damnation. It really was the best and only possible way to tell the story. This movie makes breathtaking use of the rich language of cinema to convey ideas and themes just through the visuals alone. It's tremendously profound for a movie that is as tonally lighthearted as La La Land. The songs range from great to phenomenal. The performances of Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone are just some of the greatest aspects of the film. They contribute so much to the scope and size of the story. The characters are fantastic. With the more you spend with Mia and Sebastian, the less the inevitable heartbreaking ending is apparent. But when it comes, happiness just falls apart. And what is even more tragic is that their fate-sealed relationship and breakup is devastatingly realistic. The sequences and set pieces this movie gives us go from funny to sweet to downright tear-jerking. The true miracle of this film is just how accessible it is to younger audiences. I watched this movie with my 10-year-old nephew, and he said he was never more sad about a relationship failing than the one of these two. And as an aromantic who thinks 80% of the romantic media is garbage, it's stunning to see a movie that is just so unbelievably happy and tragic at the same time. There is so much to say about this movie, and I could never say it all. La La Land is truly the best Damien Chazelle film ever. It isn't even close. This movie takes everything that was great about Babylon, First Man, Whiplash, and the only part of Guy and Madeline that wasn't completely boring and cranked them all up to 12. Nothing will ever top this incredible, beautifully shot magnum opus of an amazing director. Damien Chazelle has the utmost potential as a filmmaker in Hollywood. Maybe if Paramount Pictures wasn't so bad at marketing Babylon, then maybe Damien's career wouldn't be in so much turmoil as it is right now. As I said in the beginning, his movies are nothing short of magic. It doesn't matter which genre he touches, he always gets it right. Whether it's a psychological thriller, a musical romance, a science fiction biopic, or a 1920s period piece, he gets it right all the damn time. The 5 films that Damien Chazelle has made all come from a place of incredible talent. Whenever the time comes, Damien will thrive once again, and I will gladly become one of the people to check out his work in theaters. For now, take care guys, and I'll see you in the next video.